Alright guys, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of Snake and Drake reading Reddit stories. So today I'm feeling a little bit sick, so you can kind of hear that in my voice if you listen closely. But anyway, I wanted to record a story today anyway, so make sure to like and comment what we should do next. Let's get right on with some entitled parent stories. Alright, so let's get on with the first story. So for the first up, we have Lady wants my first class ticket because my grandmother is black. Let me just say, this happened about 5 hours ago, so I'm pretty fresh on the details on this one. I told my roommates this story, and they thought I should post it here, so here we go. EM is entitled mother, EK is entitled kid, FA is flight attendant, GM is my grandmother, and me is, well, me. Little backstory first. I'm white, like really white. I'm so pale I glow in photos. My mother is also white, but my grandmother, her mother, is black. My mother was adopted by a black family when she was a kid. She was a foster kid and was then adopted by her foster mother, my grandmother. I don't really know how much about the situation. My mother tells me she had a happy childhood. I'm her biological daughter, so we look similar, but I don't look like the rest of my extended family, cousins, uncles, and aunts, etc. Okay, end of backstory. Okay, I was flying from Guyana with my grandmother to visit her childhood village and see some extended family members. We had flown there with no issue of first class. Now, I've never flown first class before, neither had my grandmother, but since she had a ton of miles racked up, she decided to use them for this trip. My grandmother is a pretty incredible woman and takes no crap from anybody, and she really saved the day here, both dealing with the parent and getting us first class seats. So we were waiting at the gate, boarding passes in hand, and I was pretty tired. For some reason, the only flights out of the country were at midnight. We were just hanging out by the gate, doing our thing, when they called for first class, priority members, and military with active IDs to board first. Okay, we boarded, no problem there. We were getting settled on the plane, my grandmother sitting down on the window seat, and I was hefting our bags into the overhead bin. My grandmother, despite being a boss, is still an old lady who can't really lift heavy things, when I heard a throat clear behind me. It's the EM, a 30-some woman with a kid in tow, who's maybe 5 or 6. Now, Guyana gets a lot of really rich people coming to visit for adventure tourism, fishing, hiking, etc., and given by the bright red sunbird and the let me talk to the manager haircut this lady had, I'm guessing she must have done something like that. Hi. EM stares at me for a minute as if expecting something. I begin to squirm a little bit. That's our seats. Thinking we might have gotten into the wrong row. Oh, sorry, hang on, let me check my boarding pass. Well, it's not actually our seats. EK here has been so good this entire trip, and we're both really tired. Would you mind switching seats with us? I'll hold him in my lap during the flight. We're in coach. No, I'm sorry. I want to sit next to my grandmother, and these tickets were really expensive. Maybe ask someone else? Where's your grandmother? I point at my grandmother, who is looking at the safety card and really isn't paying attention to the conversation. That's her. She scoffs like I'm playing a prank on her. There's no way that's your grandmother. You're lying. No, I'm really not, ma'am. She's my grandmother, and I'd like to stay with her. She's not your grandmother. This is ridiculous. EK starts to realize that he might not get to sit in first class and starts to cry. It's also pretty late, so he's probably tired and cranky. I want to sit down, Mommy. I know, sweetie. I'll get this all worked out. She turns back to me. How dare you cause our child to cry? Give us your seat, you liar. No, I paid for these seats. I'm not going to give them up. The entitled kid starts crying louder, and this gets my grandmother's attention. I quickly explain what's going on, and my grandmother begins to stand up to confront this lady. Excuse me, but you cannot sit here. This is my grandbaby, and she does not want to give up her seat. Oh, this is not your grandchild. You're black. My grandmother gets silent for a moment. She gets this look in her eyes that I've seen many times when I was a kid and I was misbehaving around her. As a side note, we've had people giving up weird looks in public because we're so close. We both know that it's not really normal for a white kid to have a black grandmother, and my mother and grandmother have had issues in the past about them being related because my mom is white and her mom is black. But we've never had anyone say it so directly or so rudely. So, he's my grandchild. It doesn't matter to you about how or why. We are sitting together in the seats we paid for. Excuse me? Of course it matters. You're lying so she won't give us her seat. Both of you should give your seats to me for being liars. I stand there shocked. EK starts crying louder, and my grandmother looks like she's about to start throwing punches. It was then that a flight attendant came by, since this lady was standing in the aisle and causing a long line, and no one was moving/boarding the plane. Excuse me, what seems to be the problem here? These people took our boarding passes. They're sitting in our seats. Is that true? My grandmother quickly explains the situation, just the boarding pass part, not that racist part, and FA checks everyone's IDs and boarding passes. It's obvious that EM is lying about the whole thing. FA confronts EM. Ma'am, I'm going to ask you to please get to your assigned seat so that others can board the plane. This girl is lying. She's black. They're not related. Mrs. EM, you'll need to exit the aircraft immediately. Excuse me? This kind of behavior will not be tolerated on the airline. Please gather your things and leave the plane. We'll schedule you on a different flight. Mommy, are we not going home? No, we are, sweetie. She faces FA and starts screaming, and I mean screaming bloody murder. She yells about us lying, the unfair treatment, etc., etc. FA has to call security to drag EM kicking and screaming off the plane. EK was wailing, watching his mother get dragged off the plane. Before security could gather him as well, he approached me and starts punching me in the upper leg. Granted, he's a little kid, but I had some nasty sunburn there and it hurt like a dickens. I yelped and security had to drag EK off the plane just like his mother. The kid even managed to bite a security guard as he was going out. After the whole thing, the FA turns to us and apologizes for everything and said that we'll be reimbursed for the cost of the tickets. The rest of the flight was uneventful and we landed safely. We got free food, which was nice, and my grandmother just called and said since she used miles, we didn't get reimbursed, but they did give us a $600 voucher for the next flight on that airline. Nice. What I really don't get is that Guyana has a predominantly African/Indian population. Why go somewhere filled with people you obviously don't like? Anyways, that's the whole story. It was so wild, I just had to share it. I guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree when it comes to that horrible kid and his mother. My grandmother and I have already made a booking flight to fly on the same airline again, by the way. You know, I really like when stories like this have a happy ending. It makes me feel good that justice was served to an entitled parent and sometimes the entitled kid. And I really hope that entitled kid grows up to be much better than he is now and his mom is now. Alright, let's get on to the second and final story. Alright, so for our second and final story, we have Leave My Car Alone. Just a little backstory. I'm 17 and from a rather affluent family. I drive a 2017 BMW 420i, and this car has caused me a little trouble. I was out with a few mates yesterday, and while we were out, I dropped off my car for some detailing and refurbishment. Scratched rims and a good clean. I dropped it in my mate's dad's garage, and he had pushed it to the front of the queue. We took his dad's car, and I gave his dad my keys. When I pick it up today, I noticed a mother with a child. No big deal, I could not care less, really. But this child is running around, and he runs into my car. He did no damage to it, so I politely ask his mother to ask her kid to step away from the car. She responds with, "Why? It's my car. I just saw it and tell her it's mine." She calls me a liar, and I said I couldn't afford something like that. And even picks up on my cheap clothes and calls me out when I check the time on my Sony Xperia to prove her point. I step into the office and tell my manager I'd like to collect my car. He hands me my keys, and I go to get in it, and this woman pushes me over. I get back up and walk around her as the manager asks her to leave. She gets her kid in her car and leaves surprisingly quietly. The manager apologizes, and I leave. This woman drove a 2004 Focus. And then it's like stories like these that just make me confused on people's thoughts sometimes. It's like, why would he even ask the mom to make his kid go away from the car if it wasn't his car? And then she just decided to go like, oh no, it's my car. Like, what? That makes no sense to me. And then like, what was the point in pushing him away? It's like, there was no point in doing any of that. Alright guys, so that's it for today's video. So this is the first video that I have edited all by myself. This is edited on mobile, so tell me if you like either Drake's or my editing better. Drake usually edits the story while I read them, but today I decided to edit and read them because Drake is lazy. And so Comment down below whose editing is better, what subreddit you want us to read next, and make sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. See you later.